Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first session of GPT for Arts and Humanities by Valentin Golev, designed for humanities students with little to no programming background. GPT for Arts and Humanities is an 8-session workshop that focuses on the text-based research in humanities, leveraging LLM technology, large language models, most notably ChatGPT and GPT-4, colloquially accepted as the most widely useful contemporary form of artificial intelligence. The workshop offers an accessible introduction to key LLM-related technologies and products such as ChatGPT, GPT API, and vector embeddings, which support a broad range of useful applications. By emphasizing practical, hands-on use cases, the workshop demystifies complex concepts, enabling participants to amplify their research capabilities. Topics covered include the fundamentals of LLM, construction of topic-specific chatbots, techniques for analyzing expansive PDF archives, and innovative approaches to conceptual research and translation. To ensure that the workshop is aligned with the unique research needs of our participants, we'll ask each of them to complete a brief questionnaire about their background and interests.
We didn't, so maybe we skip this paragraph.
Sure.
Yeah, let's just go. I think it's
okay. Let me read your bio real quick, and then I'll hand it off. Valentin Golev is a technology consultant, programmer and writer based in Berlin. He's been advising commercial, educational, and nonprofit companies on the use of AI and technology, including the New Center for Research and Practice, eFlux, Goethe Institute, and many others. His area of research interest is critical, practice-centered, and ethnographically and psychoanalytically informed exploration of technology. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay. Let me replace myself with a slide. So, GPT for Arts and Humanities. And today's agenda is, first of all, we're going to start talking about this course, what it's all about, where it comes from, what I want from you. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of how LLMs work, like, so you understand like the kind of basics of how typical apps are built. Then we're going to have a little exercise, and I'm going to be making a bot, and we're going to split into groups, and we're going to share the bot with each other within the groups. And then we're going to have a little discussion. Today, hopefully, like this session is hopefully going to be uncharacteristically heavy on me speaking, because I really want this whole course to function as a workshop, and I want to mostly work on your projects. And of course, to make it work, I have to explain to you what I want from you and what kind of projects we will be tackling and in what way, and how you can approach it without any kind of very specific technical knowledge. Of course, we're going to have some kind of theory part, but like hopefully like most of it is going to be really focused on what you do. So today I'm going to speak about it and about like my vision for this course, but from probably hopefully second session and further is going to be like mostly kind of case studies and of work on your ideas. Okay, so we find ourselves right now in the middle of this hype cycle. I don't know if you are familiar with this chart. It's pretty famous kind of chart in particular cycles. It's called Gartner hype cycle from corporation, like consulting company called Gartner. And it illustrates this idea that every technology, every kind of like major technology that is has like high potential, always goes through this period of really inflated expectations, right? Like this period where people very excited about this technology and invent some crazy use case for it and build out a lot of infrastructure. And then, of course, at some point, it turns out that most of these expectations were unfounded and excessive. And there is like a period of disillusionment. And then for most of the technologies that we know, there comes a period where they actively like put in actual use, productive use, and it's a period of much lower expectations, much lower excitement, and much kind of saner approach to it. And we're definitely somewhere on this side, on this peak side of this hype cycle, not clear where exactly. You know, every day I read another article about like, oh my God, this AI hype cycle is dead, or AI hype cycle is just getting started. And you know, everyone has an opinion, but whatever it is, we still have not reached this trough of disillusion, right? We still live in this regime of widely exaggerated expectations. And you know what's my thinking about this seminar is really based upon not like playing into this hype, but really trying to think like a few years ahead. You know, what kind of skills could I give you? What kind of work could we do to be prepared for this work that is going to be done using AI after disillusionment happens? So I want us to kind of manage our expectations. This is what we're going to be doing throughout the course. We're going to manage our expectations, and I think a lot of work with AI is about expectation management, and we're going to see in what particular ways it is happening. And I also want to say that, you know, this, you know how they say, those who cannot do, they teach. And I have been doing this kind of work, especially like consulting other people to do this kind of work as well for some time. And I definitely cannot do this anymore. I'm a little bit burned out because existing in this regime of exaggerated, excessive expectations is for me a little bit too much, right? Every time I try to like pick some kind of moderate approach, it's just not necessarily like a good time for it. But I think it's still like you know, for us it's still base, you know, if we're not, you know, we're not part of this cycle of, you know, venture capitalists and crypto scammers and whatever kind of people are kind of playing into this hype. I think for us it is you know, a good time to learn like kind of the basics and see what we can build that would be actually sensible, and maybe start kind of like the next regime, the kind of more sane regime of AI usage, started in a productive and reasonable way. I also want to say that, you know, this kind of peak of inflated expectation moment, right? This kind of mountain of excess and waste that we see around AI technologies. It's like it happened like to other technologies as well. And you know, while we can easily criticize it, it's also important to recognize that it is also time where a lot of cheap infrastructure is being built. I think like one example that people like to give is of railroads in the middle of 19th century, where, you know, there was like a railroads hype, especially in the United States, and a lot of railroads were built. Many of them for like without any good economic reason. But you know, after kind of like railroad market crash happened probably, and you know, this like disillusionment happened, turned out that all of these newly built railroads are essential and very useful for the actual kind of normal industry to be developed in the United States much quicker, right? It would be probably much harder for it to develop if there was not so many cheap railroads that, you know, nobody uses. And in the same way, we can talk about dot-com boom, right? In the 90s, when, you know, 96, 97, a lot of companies invest millions of dollars into buying a lot of servers. Then you know, there is a crash of dot-coms. All of the servers cheap and like useless, and then, you know, next kind of generation of web happens, like web 2.0, you could say, right? Like this generation of much more sanely, much more interesting built apps that utilize all this cheap infrastructure, right? It was, so, you know, right now many billions of dollars are being invested into training these models that we're going to be talking about. And it's not exactly clear that this investment is sensible, but it is a way kind of for society to build out a lot of chip infrastructure for us to use, and it gives us opportunity to use a lot of really cool technologies for quite cheaply and for a long time. So this I really eagerly await this regime of and a more sane work with AI when people kind of get used to it. And I hope it happens, right? Because, another alternative is that it never happens and this whole hype dies completely and these technologies are somehow deemed worthless, which I think would be hard to believe, but, everything is possible. But I eagerly await it, not only because it's kind of more sane regime functioning, but also because it's more economical, it's more ecological. I think it's going to be, right? Because you probably saw this crazy numbers, like every query to ChatGPT is like 7 glasses of drinking water and everything. Like, I think it's all a valid criticism of all these technologies. When it is over, we're going to witness a much more kind of sensible spending on it, right? Spending in terms of natural resources and money and everything. So I think it's good to aim for that time. Like I don't want to focus on too much kind of things that are relevant for kind of contemporary hype. I want to focus a little bit ahead, and that's what informs this course. So expectation management, right? So and I want to kind of frame it in this like a bunch of mottos. Right? So if you're making art, no. Thank you. Arina, can you please maybe mute yourself?
Sorry.
Okay, so if you're making art, no amount of AI tools will let you avoid making proper artistic effort, right? If you're doing research, no amount of AI hacks will let you avoid treating your material with proper rigor, right? If you look at how people operate in this hype cycle, it's like they are very excited about, having some kind of button that does research for them, that does makes art for them, right? And I think it's like I will be more specific about how it's how we can look at it differently, right? But this I think like this expectation of magic is something that is very telling of this like kind of hype situation. And so we will be focusing not on like all of these little tools and not on the hacks. We're going to be focusing on what I would call areas of fruitful application of effort. This is areas, like if you ever tried to do something like, for example, Midjourney, you know that at first it doesn't seem like a tool for which it is true that you get what you put in, right? You can make a really bad prompt and you can get a decently looking image from Midjourney, but improving on it, like really controlling it, like going from this kind of mediocre or like fine or okay image to something you actually want, to something good, to something that you find useful or important or fit in your practice, it is really hard, right? It's not even clear, like if you didn't like take a New Center's workshop on the Midjourney, if you didn't learn how to use it like properly, you don't even know where to apply the effort, right? You can end up, there is this, if you remember, there was this Willy Wonka experience, right? When like there's a bunch of images going around the internet about this Willy Wonka experience where it was like some kind of event or a festival for children that was advertised, that the tickets were sold, and then people came in and they found like a very empty warehouse with a couple of stands that are kind of slightly colorful, and it was like desolate and it was sad, and it's like you look at this and it's like you don't even know how would you like fix it, how would you improve it. And I think this is, even though I'm not sure if AI was used for the Willy Wonka experience specifically, but I think it is a good symbol of what people who really expect magic from AI what they can end up building a lot of the time, right? There's things that are completely underwhelming, completely empty, and not even one doesn't even know how to go about improving them. So uh, there is a few things that you can do about your AI tool, about your AI app, about your AI artwork that will very likely bring you improvements, like incremental improvement, not magical, not massive. And this is what I want to focus on. And it is also a thing that yeah, I mean, I think this kind of areas are also good defense from any kind of fears about AI replacing us or anything, right? If you know how to where to apply effort that AI cannot do for you, right? Or that augments AI's work, LLM's work, whatever else, machine learning in a fruitful way, it will go a long way towards alleviating your kind of fears and anxieties about job security. I'm not talking about job security itself because I don't understand it, but your anxiety is definitely going to be managed by. So, yeah. So, before we go, let's about this AI tools, AI hacks. What I meant by them is, sometimes you open something like LinkedIn or even like I sometimes see it on Instagram and you see some kind of prompt engineering tips, right? You know what I'm talking about. Does anyone, like, I guess all of you have tried ChatGPT, maybe use it a little bit. Do you know any of these hacks, any tips that you liked, that you ever heard? Brenda?
Yeah, my favorite hack is telling it to like take on a persona of someone. Like you are a middle school teacher. What would you say
Uh-huh.
to this kind of thing? But like giving it a persona to be, I find that more helpful because it'll veer away a bit more from its standard voice. Because often it'll have like the same repeating words, like it uses labyrinth in like every response it has, but it'll drop some of that like typical language and try to adopt a different persona. It doesn't usually work beyond a paragraph, but at least
Uh-huh.
you get a good first paragraph out of it.
Cool. So, and you like using this middle school teacher?
Yeah, I work at a tech company, so I often have to create materials and marketing materials or designs. So I like to make it pretend to be the user so I can like do a draft and then verify with actual users if it got it correct.
Cool. Peggy?
So I took that class on Midjourney from Inut Center, and we did a little bit of script writing and writing plots and plot summaries. And I teach in a university, and I taught a class about storytelling and making a little animation. And I used it with those students to do the same thing when they wrote plots. And I asked them to put in the script and asked them AI to ChatGPT to format the script correctly and put in some of the camera angles or whatever. So it was a good starting point. They had to go back and see that it was actually something they could create, because sometimes it adds things that are very difficult, especially if you're using AI to create. So it really convinced everybody that it's not taking over. It's only helping.
So you use ChatGPT to add like propose camera angles for scenes in a script.
Mhm. We actually asked it to like write from a little story prompt with some characters. We asked it to do a script with those characters and this 500-word story prompt, which is what they did in that course from New Journey. And then we're using at New Center. And then we asked them to put in some camera angles, put in some scenes, write some narrations. It was actually pretty wild. You really had to go back and pare it down to something that you could possibly create in the time period with the characters that you had. But it was interesting, and it gave a structure to work with.
Yeah. Okay. So, this is great. And but so what I want to say is I want us to get to the state where kind of all of these uses or all these hacks about like ChatGPT come naturally to you, come intuitively to you, right? This is not like I saw people like making lists of 100 of them or memorizing them somehow. And I think like one problem with it is that you know, if you find yourself like a little bit lost in your project, if you find yourself, you know, in this like you making something and it ends up, you know, a really wonky experience, sometimes you like you don't know what to do with it, and none of these hacks are gonna help. Sorry? Okay. So sometimes you're making something and you can look for this like hacks, you can look for little tips, but none of them are gonna help, right? They can a little bit improve the output, they can a little bit like change something, but they are not like if you're making like an actual creative project, sometimes there is like a limit to what they can do, and you want to figure out where to actually put effort, like reasonable effort that would actually be able to change something. Window, right?
So I find ChatGPT works when I give it as much specific information as possible to the case study, because when you just kind of throw in and say, make me a list, it's going to make you quite a generic one. But if you say, make me a list, like someone else mentioned around a persona, but you say, make me a list based on like really specific information. It could be a resume, it could be a list of job expectations. Like the prompt requires you to be very specific, but to also understand that you're asking an entity a question and then come back to go back and forth. Because there's also, I think that the best ChatGPT prompt that I learned question was clarification. So saying to ChatGPT, if you need more information, please ask me, or what are the clarifying questions that you would raise in this instance to get to a better answer? And that brings out a very different output. So like the creative stuff, it can, but it does well with like the data sets and like the analytics, because the creative stuff is still a bit speculative. So it doesn't have enough information to really, you know, round it in the same way that it would if you're asking it grammatical questions or just, you know, basic things.
Yeah, this is very good, and this is something that we are going to do as an exercise at the end, like this like very specific kind of prompt. You will see. But also, yeah, I think just to clarify, we're not going to be learning how to use just simple ChatGPT. I mean, it's not that hard. We're going to be learn how to make something for other people. It can be bot, it can be a little app, it can be a little website that does something interesting or useful. It can be some research project, right, that you will be able to do something with later. But it's not simply like writing something in ChatGPT. Even though today, specifically today, this is where we're gonna stick. Arina?
Yes, and I wanted to say that I also use ChatGPT for lists, and I simply use it for finding maybe articles for my research or something like that, because I tried to use it to summarize some texts, but with philosophy he's not great. He's not great at all. For a different course, I wanted him to summarize one of Deleuze's one of Deleuze's book, and he just said something similar, but then he imagined some citation from this book. So that was not Deleuze, and it was strange.
But that's how everyone, like, I mean, if you ask any like second-year philosophy student to summarize Deleuze, first thing they're going to do is invent a quote that is completely never existed in Deleuze, and second, they're going to be completely wrong. Okay.
So ChatGPT is like a human.
In this
But
sense, yeah.
yeah, but it's useful for finding not big pieces of information or summarizing, but for finding something small and giving you a list of maybe about concrete theme. You need like 10 articles to be to understand something, and but ChatGPT is good with this.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So to go back to like my monologue. So as I said, I want us to look a little bit ahead, right? I don't want us to focus on, whatever Twitter discusses today. I want us to focus on something that hopefully is going to be useful to us like at least several years ahead. And to do that, I needed to like make some predictions. These are my kind of predictions. They're not even predictions, more like bets. Bets in the sense of, I can easily predict that like everything is going to change or we're all going to be replaced or dead or anything. But such predictions would not help me make a good course, right? So I'm making some kind of predictions that are going to enable us to have a productive time together, right? Also, like I frame them in a way that I think you will find for each of those things people who vehemently disagree with them, right? Like people of different level of insanity, but they would like you will always find somebody who says something completely else. So first of all, I want to say that I still think that LLM-related technology will be quite useful, right? I think like still a lot of people think, it's a hype, it's absolutely useless. Something will be found, and I think it will be useful specifically as well for like artistic and humanities research efforts. How exactly useful? That's a kind of bigger question, right? I don't think it will ever completely replace our efforts. And I'm not even sure it's going to be such an incredibly useful complement to our work. But I think it can be a reasonably interesting way to present our work. And this is what we're going to be focusing on, right? Like we did some work, as artists, as researchers, as, maybe experts in something. And we are going to use GPT API, other AI tools to present this work. But it also means that, there is some kind of work that you have already done, right? This is what we're going to talk about a bit later. Another prediction is that LLMs will be commodified. Right, we have now, if you like follow the news, there is a GPT, there is Anthropic's Claude, there is a Google Gemini, there is Llama. Like my take on it is that all of them are going to converge to more or less same thing, right? They're going to be different in some obscure ways, but I think they're going to have the same interface and going to be same capabilities, and it's going to be like something like electricity, right? You don't really know where it comes from in your socket, you just use it. Right. It's again, like it will still be fine to treat LLMs as black boxes. I don't want to, show you the diagram of what ChatGPT inside is, with transformer. I think it's over my head. It's probably over your head as well. And kind of practice shows that it's not only useless, it also gives you a lot of time kind of fake sense of intuition, fake sense of understanding, right? You learn something a little bit about like what GPT is inside, and then it gives you wrong intuition. It's like, people who go around talking about, mirror neurons and everything, like, your understanding of like brain doesn't really make you kind of better at social interaction. Same here. I also like one kind of bet for this course is that it is better to treat LLMs as a tool and not as, magic or alien intelligence. I see it a lot, like people really want to extract some kind of alien crazy intelligence from ChatGPT. Now, I think it can be fun to make something that kind of pretends to be so. What I'm thinking about is like, if you remember maybe Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting, he's an actor, right? He plays this genius guy, but he's an actor. I will never believe that Matt Damon is a genius, even though I really like him as a person. In the same here, like ChatGPT kind of plays this role. Or, if we're talking about like really alien intelligence, maybe, Klaus Kinski and Werner Herzog, right? So like Klaus Kinski is definitely kind of a crazy intelligence, but to make like a real actor out of him, an actor who can play in a movie like a really brilliant character, you need to be Werner Herzog to him. So this is what I want you to be, like to be a director, to be a screenwriter to ChatGPT. We're going to be making something that is, you will have to orchestrate it. And if you want ChatGPT to play the role of magic or alien intelligence, you will have to do the work of director for it. You cannot skip this part. This is like something I see a lot, like people like, okay, I'm going to make a prompt to ChatGPT, be crazy. And then it's going to be something really fascinating. It doesn't work like this, but there are ways to make it. You just, you need to use your own imagination, your own artistry, your own artistic devices for it. I also think that programming will keep being useful, at least as a way to orchestrate all of its AIs, as a direct them, as I said, like as a kind of screen writing tool. In like my second idea of this course that I also abandoned was to teach you all like a little bit of programming, or like kind of fake programming with ChatGPT's help. I don't think the technology is there yet to do it with all of you. Like there's like 40 people. It's hard, learning programming is like it's not that. But so we're not going to be focusing on it, but I think it's going to be useful, as opposed to this future when AI kind of reads your minds and can do everything, and you don't need to direct him, and you don't need to really be specific, as people before me said. And yeah, so that touches on my last prediction, right? The LLMs will be always fallible, and they will never read minds, right? It is not only because they're not very smart, maybe they are going to be very smart, but it's also because we humans, we don't really know what we want sometimes, right? We think they know, but like going into specific, we realize that what we imagined, that we understand, we don't really understand. So if we don't understand what we want, and if what we want is like contradictory and weird, how can we expect LLMs to understand it, right? So there will always be, a reason to, to first of all focus like on what we want and how to express it, and also to not focus on the happy path. I will talk about what it means, but it means that if you're making something for other people to use, you have to be always prepared that LLMs are not going to be perfectly doing what you expect from them, right? If like you're making it like a, let's actually, I think, yeah, let's do a case study. Like before doing case study, anyone has any comments on my bets, on my predictions, arguments? No? Okay, cool. Okay, so here's a case study. It's not like it's not overwhelmingly interesting, but I like it because it's clear, and like it's very clear what you can expect here. It's also give us like this kind of project for which we can look at how it works, and we can name all of the parts, and we can see what we're going to be working on. And I think ultimately most of the project we're going to be doing are going to have the same kind of component parts as this one. So let's look at it. So this was a project of one of my friends at German academia, and it was never actually automated. It was never given to AI, but I think it was possible to use AI for that. So let's see what would it be. So there is a bunch of medieval vernacular hymns, right? So most of them seem to be translated from a set of Latin originals. So there's a Latin prayer, by like maybe from Bible, maybe from Bonaventura, maybe from Psalms, and it's written in Latin, and then it's locally translated by some dialect of Old German. And then it's all like you find this manuscript, it's in some monastery somewhere, and it's like a local translation. It's kind of random, right? It's not like one translation for all of them. So you want to understand which original does it come from, right? So how like and there is 500 of them. How do you think it works? Any ideas? Like how would a human approach this? Becky?
So where are the originals? And are they all in this condition?
They are photographed or scanned in I mean this is actually not one of them, but yeah, they're all, they exist as JPEGs, as images on computer.
In one database? In
Yeah.
one set or whatever, but they're not translated themselves.
No, they are like, all you have is this image of in this is Latin, I think, but it would be like old German text.
Okay, and the medieval hymns. These are the Latin originals. The German hymns are in what form?
In the same form, right? It's all manuscripts. But Latin originals we already have. Like there is a database of Latin originals that we know. Like there is a corpus of Latin texts that we can expect them to be found. There is not a lot of there is a lot, but there is kind of fixed closed set of Latin texts that we can expect to be translated like this. But those vernacular texts are found in monasteries and scanned and photographed, and then they're in all German, and you have to kind of match them to Latin original.
Okay, but
Ivan?
we actually have no language.
We have what?
We have no language translation for either set. They're all images. Okay.
Ivan?
Yeah, right. I said that we have to somehow extract semantics. So semantics that abstracts it away from language, sort of semantical meta language. Yeah, something like this maybe. Or in simpler terms, maybe translate them all to English or whatever.
To English, okay. Nadia?
I think I would first try to go to the source, like the Biblioteca Mejia. I can't actually read exactly what it says, but I think I would like try to limit it to the type of documents that are contained in that archive, and maybe find some keywords, like specific keywords, and try to match from that data set from the archive to specific keywords to narrow down. Maybe I would start with something like that, like narrow down like documents in this archive that have these keywords, and then try to match them. Something like that.
Okay, I'm trying to get my Zoom connected so I can draw on a whiteboard. Megan, can you please promote me as a panelist?
Vitor, are you the host now? Can you promote the iPad to panelist?
I raised hand. I think Vitor spaced out. Okay, let's enter on my screen. It's not... Okay, so as I said, we have this vernacular manuscript. And as Peggy correctly asked, in what form, and it is currently like just JPEGs. And we have like a database of potential Latin originals that is probably mostly complete. But we are not 100% sure that we will not find some kind of text that matches to something else that is known to researchers, will be recognizable by anyone who works with it, but is not in the database. So so the first step for a task like this is to recognize the images, right? So with manuscripts, with handwritten text, it's probably going to be like maybe in this day and age, it's getting better. I think it's getting much better every year. But maybe a few years ago, it was unheard of to really recognize medieval manuscripts to precision. But this step of recognition is called optical character recognition. And it basically transforms JPEGs into text. Right, so it's going to be some kind of like text that we get from this manuscript. Now, a second thing is, as I think it was Ivan and Peggy. There should be some kind of ways to match it, right? And then like we're going to be talking about like what kind of ways we can invent to match it. And I mean, yeah, there is like keywords were mentioned on some kind of like meta meaning. I think we can use some things that we're going to talk about later called vector embeddings that are ways to present a meaning basically into like as a set of numbers. But anyway, we can call this like a match. And yeah, after we recognize this such a manuscript, we're going to send it to the matcher, and it will use this database to find like the best match. Like just like Google search helps you find some kind of match. Now, so let's consider this thought experiment. So let's say we make the simplest possible interface, for my friend to use everything. And this interface, I'm gonna make it like a little app, right? So it's gonna be like you have this upload button. And then it just tells it like something like this, like a lot of tools that we use now, that's more or less how they work. Like you upload something and then you get like one simple result, one best match. And I think when people imagine making a tool, making an AI app, a lot of the times this is what is going to be what they imagine. And I mean, does anyone see any kind of weakness of this approach? So let's consider that like optical character recognition. Let's say it has some kind of very conservative estimate, like 70% of sensible text, right? You give it like, I mean, there is probably ways to improve it, but let's say like you made something, and many of the systems you cannot really know what kind of probability is there until you really test it, right? And then let's say matcher, if you give a matcher like a sensible text, right, that is already not a given, in 70% probability of a sensible match, right? So if we're talking about this kind of probabilities, and if we're talking about this kind of interface, what would be the final probability of getting a good match for a random manuscript? So you need 70%, like from this thing, you get a good result, 70%. And then if you have this good result, you still have a 70% probability of success there.
49%?
49%, exactly. So you multiply, right? So because they both have to be good. Like, I mean, it's very kind of back of the napkin estimate, but it is what it is, right? You see that both of the systems seem reasonably good. 70% is good, but in the end you get 49%, which is worse than a coin toss, right? Like you get, like with this kind of interface, if that's all your app does, you get like only half of results. And we're talking, there was a 500 hymns, so we're gonna have 250 hymns. Now, this 50% result is not just 50%, it's even worse, right? If you look at this interface as it is, like like imagine what happens when, when we give it to my friend and she has this project and she got like funding and she needs it for her paper. So she tries it on a bunch of hymns. She realizes that, it doesn't give her good results a couple of times. Maybe she tries it on 5 and she has bad result 2 times. And like she immediately loses the whole trust in the system. She doesn't want to use it anymore because there is no point for her. She needs to redo everything again, right? This is, working with AI system, working with probabilistic system is looking for ways to help people build trust, right? So how can we, without improving these probabilities, what can we change in the interface? How can we improve this interface? I hope it's clear what's going on here. To make sure that we made something actually useful that she can use, even though it's not ever 100%. Andrea?
Maybe the interface could show us which parts of the manuscript actually were legible or sensible.
So after you upload manuscript, you propose to add a screen where we show recognized text from manuscript. And you say like parts that were legible. So you like, we show them like side by side with the image. And then what?
I was wondering if we could do some sort of visual orientation to the structure of how the lines are. It seems to me that you had those initial caps like on the left. I would think that even if we were going from Latin to German, there would be a tendency for the structure to be very similar, since we're talking about something that's done by hand. And
You
it's,
mean like here?
yeah, you see how we have those, the D and the Q, and you have like a percentage of text there and percentage of the page there, that you might be able to do some visualization that would throw out things first that didn't have any relationship to each other. Because illustrated manuscripts tended to be done sort of in the same way, regardless of what culture they were in. And they're Bible texts. They would have a structural similarity to each other.
Nadia, you want to say something?
Or maybe try to find like a common denominator of mistakes and try to exclude those mistakes from the pool of information.
So here's what I have in mind, right? So this one about recognized text from manuscript, it's a good one, right? So what we want here, this is what means like happy path, sad path, right? So happy path is this like path where everything works really well, right? We got sensible text, we got sensible match, it's a happy path. But when building an AI tool, we need to focus on the sad path. We need to focus like everything goes wrong and we still want to give something useful, right? So I really like this one about recognized text from Andrea. And I would even say like, let's make it editable. Make it editable, and then we send it to match, right? So instead of this system, right, we get we put one step between them, Proofreading. It now it and it is it. I think it's very likely that they will not have to proofread the whole page, right? I mean, it is a translation, maybe a couple sentences is going to be enough. So it's not a lot of work for them, but, they just, they upload, they get this recognized text, they check it, there is a button again, like, yes, now match. Okay. Okay, now we kind of got, like, now we defended our hero, our protagonist from bad OCR. How are we gonna improve her experience of the match? Right? We have this like page that simply says this is the best match, take it or leave it. What can we do different? Ivan?
Maybe you should sort of order potential matches. Yes.
So you want to show several matches?
Yeah, for instance, the first one is like that number of percent, and the other one is that number, so that a person that uses that product, they will see. So if we see something like 69% this and 68% that, it's probably we see that something is wrong here. And if we see like 70% this and 4% that, we can press like the first option.
Okay. So instead of giving her one match, we show her several that are like as good as they get. And I think this is already like, I think we improved this whole system by a lot, right? We didn't make it all like all or nothing. We focused on set path, and we make the system much more usable. Right? I think even means also that we can give some kind of feedback here or something like this. But I think it's for a project like this, it's not always useful to give a lot of feedback, except like in the initial part, right? Because it's just 500 of them. You recognize them, match them, and that's it, right? It's not some kind of ongoing system, right? But if it's something that has to be online forever, and if we have this infinite kind of source of things to upload to them, of course we can add also kind of feedback system, and this feedback at first can go to us as developers of the system, right? We can just read it and we can improve the system accordingly, and then afterwards we can maybe invent some kind of system to automatically apply this feedback, right? Like ChatGPT, for example, if you don't like the answer, there is a thumbs up, thumbs down button. There is also a button to like regenerate. So it now processes them I think automatically, but I think in the beginning it was reviewed by their support people. I'm not sure, but yeah. So so you see, to make a kind of better app, to make an app that is useful and it's not it does not impose its own decisions on the people. It doesn't require you to really have deep technical knowledge, right? I think it will, like, maybe what I'm saying is not very clear, but you will get used to it. You will get used to thinking not in terms of like one final answer from AI system. You will get used to thinking about like in probabilistic terms, in terms that can be should be recoverable from, right? Whatever it is you're making, you want to make sure that like at every step of the way, if something goes wrong, it's still you still didn't completely waste users' time. You still didn't completely betray their trust. There is still maybe a way to recover from it. Another important part here is that even like we're talking here about these probabilities of things going our way, on the level of different ML systems. But there is also like in this case, maybe it's not that obvious, but even here there is a certain kind of probability, you can say, but not even probability. It's just like there is a chance that the person who interacts with your system does not interact with it in the way you expect. If you make some kind of a bot, it's especially if it's like a chatbot and people write text to it, it is very likely that what they're going to write to it is not exactly what you imagined that they're going to write, right? It's also something that you need to be aware of. And you really, when you make in such a system, you will have to focus on happy paths and sad paths, and that is what is going to make your system good, right? Let me go back to my slides. Now, I wanted to make a little aside about like what does it mean, you know, with when I was talking about like 70% success, failure, and everything. So as we were mentioned, when AI system gives you an answer, it is easy to imagine that it gives you like tells you an answer and gives you a probability of it being right, but almost never it almost never does so. Almost every AI system gives you like a generative AI system, like here, right? Here we see output like in a tree visualization of outputs of a text generator, and it was a caption generator. And we're going to look at this page again because it's enlightening. But here you can see that from the start, the sentence could start with like street, with people, or with several, and then continue differently, right? And or it could start with city, and then it would be also sentence with same meaning but different words, different word order. And you know, this like what's it, garden of fork and paths, you could say, right? And you see near every word here there is a little number, and this number is I mean, most of the system are going to give you score in some way, right? Sometimes you can interpret the score as a probability, but sometimes it's just some kind of number that doesn't have any inherent meaning, except that, you know, higher score, more likely, right? So in this case, this system said that, you know, streets number minus 0.86 was much higher than cities number minus 1.62, and much higher than like other words like off, right? Because it's not very often that sentences start with off, so it has a pretty low score, but it still was possible here. And this is what you're going to be working on with a lot. And even with LLMs, like, you know, when you use ChatGPT, you don't really notice it. And I will show you how it kind of works under the hood. But it is all working on this kind of scores, this kind of probabilities. And that's one more reason not to expect from, you know, AI systems one right answer, right? It's good when your system can sensibly work with a multitude of different answers and presents them together. You know, at least, you know, Midjourney shows you like 4 different options that you can then vary. But in case of text, there is something different. And this is going to be like thinking about how to structure our tools around this multitude of possible responses is going to be like a major part of our work. Okay, so what is this work? So I hope that by the end of the course, each of you will design and prototype a project. And it's going to be a project that consists like of several parts. And we will structure all the work during the course around your project. Of course, you know, there's going to be some theory, there's going to be some like explanations about things, but like the sooner I start hearing about what you want to be making, the more focused and more useful our work is going to be. First half of the course, we're gonna be still learning a lot. We're gonna be trying different things, looking at them. But by the 5th session, after the middle of it, I would like you to figure out and register by me at least ideas, right? It's, you know, from idea to something kind of more specific, still some work is going to have to be done. So don't worry about these ideas being raw or underdeveloped or unclear, but, you know, let's start thinking about them. And what you will prepare is going to consist of several things. First of all, it's going to be a database. A database is a way for the computer to be able to work with your corpus, right? So your corpus is kind of raw, right? Your corpus might be like PDFs, videos, I don't know, like something that is unprocessed. But database is like a way for computer to really interact with your corpus, to really be able to work with it. And it's something that, you know, are quite artisanally designed for your app typically. I would say this is going to be the most important thing. And this is something that is quite essential. Second, I think that is also part of your final project is a video or a mock-up of the user's interaction with your tool, right? You will have to imagine how it works. If your tool, if your idea, if your chatbot or whatever is not very simple, it's very likely that you will not be able to 100% make it. So you're going to have to kind of fake it a little bit. And to fake it, you will have to focus on, you know, I say here 3 different happy paths, 1 sad path. Might be a different combination, but it's good if, you know, this animation, this mockup, this whatever slides, this Figma project has all of them, right? And they should be specific, right? I'm not talking about like abstract, you know, like you say something, okay, user enters query here and he gets an answer. No, it should be specific. You know, you're making a chatbot about a person living in Russia in 14th century and his adventures, you know, as a monk. And you want to imagine what kind of actual queries users are going to send and what kind of answers you expect, even if it's not real, even if it's not possible. This is important to like, create this mockup, and then we see, you know, if it's possible. Third thing that is less important, but, you know, also good, it's the prompts that your app will use if you're using ChatGPT, right? If you're using GPT API. So let's say you're making an app that is, you know, like some kind of historical reenactment. You want to make these prompts. You want to make prompts that are going to work with your user, right? To generate the kind of text and response that you want. Right? If it's historical reenactment, you will have to make sure that your prompt contains all of the information that is needed to GPT to create a sensible answer and to do it. Now, if you have all of this, and all of this you can do, you don't need technical knowledge to do any of this, right? Like database, worst case scenario, make it in Excel, right? And, you know, I'll be like actively helping you along the way. Like video mockup, again, you use some kind of design tool, you make it, or draw it on a piece of paper. Prompts, we will figure out how to write them with ChatGPT. But it's great if you actually make an interactive app. It's okay if it works in like 10% of cases. It's really cool. Also, absolutely not a requirement. You can get perfect grade and my highest praise without anything. And the reason why the balance here is like this is not only because I don't, you know, trust your abilities to make it, but also because these things, this corpus, database, a mockup, a clear picture of what you want your user to do and how you're going to recover from any problems is infinitely more important than any kind of programming part. This is what, like, it's very easy to program like a little app. I mean, maybe like it doesn't feel easy to you, but it's really, it's not where kind of the problem lies. But a lot of the time, like, you know, as a consultant, sometimes I see apps that are made and people who made them, they never even considered how people are going to use them. Like not even happy. Like they have some kind of idea that if they throw some things together, it somehow is going to work, but there is no way for a normal human being to use them and get some kind of results they're going to like. So that's why, you know, these things are the focus. And, you know, what is not needed, I like any kind of long text about your project. And so I know you can write them. So to be more specific about corpora. Because, you know, as I said, you know, you can make an app, you can make some kind of AI tools that doesn't use any kind of corpora, any kind of corpus and any kind of database. Because, you know, like, but it's like, it's going to be a kind of limited interest, right? It can be brilliant, you know, you can always say, yeah, you can you can paint a picture, like you can paint a picture of a black square and it's get into art history, but ultimately, most of the time, if you painting, you want to interact maybe with reality somehow. But that is like a corpus is the way, one of the ways for your app to interact with reality, to represent it. So, and that's why we're going to be focusing on it. Of course, in some cases, you can avoid it, but if you learn how to use it, you will also learn how not to use it. And by this possible corpora, and this is something that I think you should start thinking now. Possibilities are the following, right? So first of all, it can be a bunch of PDFs, right? It can be maybe papers, maybe your papers, maybe some secondary literature. No, like copyright situation is unclear, but if you're not publishing this up anywhere and only doing it like for us, maybe it's not a problem to find a book somewhere. So as a corpus, it's going to be just a bunch of PDFs, just a bunch of books. But to make a database out of them, we will have to do some transformations on them to make sure computer can understand it. It can also be, instead of somebody else's work, it can also be some text you have written, right? For example, you want to do some kind of a role-playing game or reenactment historical. Like there is this guy called Benjamin Breen, who is a historian, and I will send the link. Actually, it's interesting. He's a historian, and he makes like history simulators using ChatGPT. And to do that, he does a lot of work on basically world building, right? He describes the world, he describes the situation. I'm not sure if he uses any original works or secondary literature from the era, but he also writes down the characters. And he allows you to like play a little game inside the world that he built, right? So you can like your corpus doesn't need to be like some kind of book. It can be something you have written. It can even be like anything. You have diaries from your teenage years. It's fine as long as there is something interesting to do with it. It can also be, you write a bunch of materials to teach people some skill or something else. It can be a collection of images, right? Like manuscripts we mentioned, but it's something else. But it's very important that there is some kind of like semantic differentiation. If it's just abstract paintings that you've made, if it's something like this that all have same mood, same color, it's not very clear how you're gonna work with them, right? They all like for computers they're probably gonna look more the same. So but still, if you do some kind of found art projects, if you have a collection of items, anything else, maybe you will find a way to use it as your corpus. Or one other possibility is like collection of audio or video files that we can transcribe. Like one thing I was thinking about is Newsender archives, which I think several terabytes of videos. There is some work that can be done on it. I don't know what ChatGPT, like I don't know, bots that find something or answer questions or maybe find some quotes. If you have like another podcast, you can also use it, but it's not clear like what interesting things can be done. I don't know, like some people have like maybe you will want to make a tool that will cut your podcast or like find some sound bites, interesting quotes to use. I don't know. Or like video files, maybe you have like a bunch of old movies and you want to do some work on it, some like kind of frame level work or textual work. Jorge? Yeah. Jorge, I don't hear you because you're muted.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I have a question. I do have a practice where I have a lot of videos on YouTube, and I would like to scrap. I mean, at some point I did partially that, but I think that maybe it is to scrape part of the text from the video and then use that as part of the corpus. Would that be something that would work?
Yes, as long as there is like an interesting thing you can do with it. right? Also, like if it's your videos, you can download them from YouTube. If it's not your videos, like probably you can only do it if you don't tell anyone.
Yeah, no, are my videos. Are my videos.
Yeah, let's brainstorm some corpora. You know, one use of images that I saw, there's a paper called Economic Development Through the Lens of Paintings. So they had this big archive of European paintings for centuries, I think, and they tried to put it through the systems that recognized emotions of each painting. And, you know, they made some plots, you know, how famine and war kind of influences amount of fear and despair on paintings, or how it corresponds to like some economic measures. Now, it's like epistemologically, I think there is like a lot of question to this method, but still, you know, you can use a bunch of images, do some emotional sentiment recognition, I don't know, or objects, and you can do a little bit of research, right? It's another possibility. So yeah, talk to me about your ideas here, please. Marcel, I think you were first.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a image corpus. So for instance, I work in a design studio, and I've been working on a research project that involved a lot of image work, specifically different types of materials, of sculptures, of sort of surface textures, like different materials like concrete, steel, etc. And what was interesting was like some of the images were photographs, some of them were AI generated, some of them were sort of kind of these poor images where like without seeming origin or anything. But there were like interesting overlaps in sort of the just some of the motifs and some of the colors also, etc. Yeah, and I would be interested to see what like a kind of tool or something would make out of that.
We're gonna be at some point we're gonna be discussing vector embeddings. That is a kind of Swiss knife of this kind of work, and you will be able to do a little like map or visualization of these images by different kind of closeness, semantical closeness, maybe. I don't know. I'm like, so you will be able to build something that helps you a little explore this archive a little bit, but I'm not sure, without like looking at your archive more specifically, if there is something more interesting to do with it than just exploring the archive, if you know what I mean, right? You can make like a search, basically. It's all kind of glorified search, but can you make something generative? Can you make something interesting out of it? Or
Yeah, I think
like
that's
some
my question. Like if it's able to sort of generate interesting connections or kind of clusters of like different images and bring them into a group that I don't know that maybe sparks an idea or that suggests something, you know?
so
Because I had like, let's say I did a presentation with these images and I had my own way of arranging them and creating like a meaningful order. And I would be interested to see, okay, what if I gave that same corpus to this tool? Could it generate something other than what I already thought of, you know, and give like some kind of feedback in a way that it brings a different kind of train of thought.
you know, this is like exactly kind of case where it's good to imagine what would be kind of happy path, right? Like try to come up yourself with unusual arrangement, right? It is like we will be like we will look at some ways to generate this unusual arrangements, but to make something that is interesting beyond this like one time, two times thing, there needs to be something kind of bigger idea than just something unusual, right? So think about this, think about like what this tool can do, what is it, like if you had like, there's a thing called intern test, right? Can you explain to an intern what to do? Like imagine and if you can, maybe all of this AI tools also can help. Andrea?
I have maybe two clarifying questions. What is a bunch of stuff? What is enough? And maybe it's the first one. And the second question would be, there are a lot of public domains out there with, I'm thinking about museum collections, for example, if you wanted to look at, I don't know, images of art, something that can be easily downloaded or looked at online. And I think the question would be of, what the quantity of materials would be necessary to actually work with.
So I would say almost minimal is fine, right? It's I mean, it's really like what you can do with interesting, what allows you to do something interesting. Like if you're talking about, like if your project is a world building, like historical simulation, maybe just like a couple of pages of type text is enough. If you're making a database of European paintings, it's probably 10 is going to be too little, right? You want something like, but it's also fine. Like one thing I was thinking about, like TNC archives, to transcribe all of them is a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort. So you can make a prototype. If your tool works with paintings and you say, okay, it's going to be really cool when we have 10,000 paintings, but I only had time for 50 or 10, but it's still very clear that it scales, right? It's like it demonstrates what you want to demonstrate, even if like only like in this way, then it's going to be enough. So there is no need to be very ambitious, but it's also like, what I constantly find, like, sometimes I'm like, I don't know, like a few months ago, I thought, okay, I'm gonna do some practice for this course to see, if I can, like how hard it is to make something for a layperson. I was thinking about making one bot that basically searches Lacan seminars, and it's just downloading them, like pirating them, and then like all of this like different PDFs. It was already such a chore that like just doing it is hard, but it's also you see how far technology is, like it's like, because there is still like a lot of manual work, and it's also it's a good work, it's useful work. I mean, this particular one about Lacan, it's probably illegal work, but if like something like this, what you said about like museum, and like if you figure out how different museums present their data and how actually downloadable it is and what format, you will see that it's all different, and it requires a lot of effort to make a database out of this corpus, right? This is where kind of difference between corpus and database is very clear, right? Like corpus is just like whatever it is, but a database, it needs to work. So I would say like something for a prototype level, and it can be, as I said, it can be all kind of fake, right? But it's still like if you have a database, let's say it's enough for a database, so like it's very clear how people can continue growing it, right? That would be enough. But if it's like something that you can actually make something with, even better. Antonio?
Yeah, still in the brainstorming. I don't know if it's a perhaps too simple idea or too pragmatic, but I'm interested in, for instance, artisanship and building things. And I was thinking of doing an archive of available material. So for instance, pieces of wood. And if I could put in the database also all of the technical drawings of the things I would like to do, maybe the computer could tell me this piece of material works better for this. So kind of try to source the material to the best design that it would be optimized. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like you and Marcel, you want to work with kind of artifacts that you have out of your kind of real world practice.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very interesting problem, right? It's just, what is it? what is it that is actually going to be useful or interesting is not immediately clear, right? Like one thing, like here I'm thinking, it is, if you're making a project and you want to document its process, it's a lot of extra work to document the process, right? You have to photograph it, you have to arrange with photographs, and you have a lot of photographs you need to work with them. So maybe some kind of tools that really helps you prepare, like for your project, some like nice presentation about it or something. Or as you said, like with suggesting which pieces work together. I mean, it would be interesting to try to do it, like using some simple tools. And there are some like ideas, you can make. I think randomness is going to help you here a little bit more than AI, which also kind of fine. It's fake it, like it's all smoke and mirrors. But I think, you can do something like this. It's just try to think about it a little bit critically, like about like the usefulness of something like this. It's not it's not as easy to make something out of like extra bits and pieces. Anyone else? Or same people? Okay, good. Yeah, we will continue this conversation, right? Probably like next time we're going to talk about it again, and we are going to start working with some corpora. So for next time, I will probably send an email with it, but please come with a couple of PDFs. It can be absolutely random. They don't have to have any kind of relation to your final project, but we're going to learn how to work with this text, how to put it, in computer, how to enable it. Okay. Maybe some questions about projects. I mean, it kind of was part of maybe a corporate discussion, but I think it's clear, right?
If I can intervene for a second, I don't think I fully understand, but I think it's okay right now. But I'm not sure that I completely understand what is that we are supposed to do at the moment. But I think we will have time to. I mean, at the
You
end.
probably want more kind of examples.
Sorry.
You want more maybe examples of what it can be.
I don't know. No, I think it's okay. I mean, I think maybe by the end of the session, if I'm a bit more lost, if I need more guidance, then I will ask something in particular. But I think for now it's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Akanksha?
Yeah, I think I also have this similar thing that I get this sense, but maybe it's all the things that we need to do, just how they will be done. I'm just kind of wondering. I've never done anything like this. There's no background. So I'm just, I think, concerned about that. That's why the confusion of, do I understand what is to be done?
Okay.
So,
Peggy?
So can we use an open source data set of some sort?
Absolutely, yes.
Now just find me one.
Okay. So we will look at more examples of these apps, and we will make database, we will make a mockup, we will make prompts, we will make all of this, and it will be more clear what it is, right? I understand kind of this problem, right? But we have to learn how to make this, and we have to understand it. Luendo?
Thank you.
Sorry,
No, it's okay. I know my name's from halfway around the world. I'm sure it's not a name you're used to. But I wanted to ask you about open source, or artworks that are out of copyright, and using that kind of thing for the corpus because it's accessible and you can already track patterns without necessarily having to pay.
Yes, you can absolutely use any open source, open access database, as long as, but you will have to download it, open it. It cannot be just like, okay, you send me a link to some page where it says that there is in theory some database. You will have to transform it into something, usable, right? Like probably kind of the most likely output would be Excel sheet, like Google spreadsheets, something like that. We will see some other options here, maybe, you know, from Notion database to text to anything, but I would say, you know, you will have to download this collection of images, and you will have to make like an Excel sheet of them, like with their names, like paint and titles, dates, whatever it is you need to be using. So I would say, yeah, definitely, but prepare to make sure that you understand how they're structured and how to work with them. Pichaya?
Hi, Valentino. I'm not sure about the purpose of this project that we are supposed to do. Is it the focus is for designing effective prompts, or is it more of a user interactive, or it's a user experience kind of project? Would you rather focus on the designing the prompts, or would you focus on a rather a bigger project? I mean, bigger picture, like how we structure the interaction.
I think bigger picture is more important. You know, you're making something for other people. Prompts, you know, they come kind of organically, right? If you look at it, I think the right way, you will see, like, you know, it's you know, one thing that I always do, you know, when I work on this, I always try to come up with a pretty bad prompt. Sometimes I specifically leave kind of mistakes in it and stuff, because it allows me not to get too complacent, right? Not to trust AI too much with it, right? Like if my app can work with not perfect prompt, it's only going to improve. But if I rely on AI too much, like I end up with like this sad path problem, and then it's not well designed. So I would say like very clear idea of what people are going to do with like bigger picture thing is more important. But to get to it, we will have to experiment with prompts a lot. To prepare a database, we will probably do a lot of prompts. So don't worry, we will definitely learn a lot about prompts, right? It's just like not what's in the final project, it's second.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, well, we're gonna have some time for discussion afterwards, so let's go a little bit first. Okay, so time to finally talk about like what are those abbreviations. And you know, as I said in my bets, I don't think there is like a lot of reason to look too much under the engine cover. So I'm not gonna bombard you with a lot of terms and abbreviations, but obviously, since we're gonna be mentioning them a lot, important to know what it is. So GPT is a generative pre-trained transformer, and it's one kind of a thing called large language model. And large language model is a thing that works in a very particular way. And let me show you how it works. So I was trying to find something for you to also try. So let me first show you this. And so if you follow the link that I sent to you in the chat, you will see this page. Probably to use this thing, it's GPT-2. It's one of like early versions. I think it's from 2019. I don't remember. I think on Hugging Face you will have to register. Right? So now follow along. You will have probably time to do it. And GPT-2 was, you know, one of these models that like really kind of changed everything. You know, at some point we were presented with it, and we were looking at a box like this. It was, or even like this. And this is kind of the interface that like a lot of us, you know, people working with AI spend a lot of time, right? So I'm gonna do a demo here, I think, but here is a place where you can try it for free. And this is GPT-2. Now we only got excited about LLMs starting from the next version. So I was surprised to find that this GPT-2 is also quite smart. Not smart, but like, you know, useful, right? It makes some coherent sentences, even though they're like repetitive and everything. Right, so you can try different things. Like make the word. That's not how this code goes. Or see, it is a bit strange, but it gives you some kind of completion. So this was the first LLM, and then, you know, come other ones, and all of them work in the same way. They all just simply complete the text that you give to them, right? So this one is probably going to be a bit more smarter about it. Yeah. So as you see, it's by working on the level of this text that they're trying to complete, they're not like what is it? Where does this text come from, right? If you try to add something like that be another. Yeah. So it just completes text, and it completes text, and the text that it completes as a base on was like all of the web pages on the internet that it could find, right? So it would work like basically by memorizing like a lot of these pages and treating the text that you give it to it as like this kind of part of a random page, and imagining what the continuation of this page can be. Right, so this is not a chat yet, right? You see, it's just like kind of random pieces of text. Nadia, you want to say something?
Sorry to interrupt. Yes, I was just wondering if there's a difference between generative text and predictive text, or maybe you were going there, basically.
Predictive text, you mean like in T9 and in the kind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is what was so weird to us, right? Because when we look at GPT-2, it's about as smart as this T9, right, on Android, I think. Right? It's as smart. And then suddenly we see GPT-3, and we see that it's actually quite smart, right? So you can do something like, okay, here is. Nobody mentioned Deleuze, so you're gonna have to. Yeah, I mean, this is like what we can see here. It's, you know, we are used to ChatGPT, right? You all tried it, and you know how coherent and smart it is, but it is built on top of this model, and it took some getting used to, just like figuring out like how to go, how even trusting this model that this is actually kind of smart enough, right? It is really, you know, it was a big surprise that something as stupid as this like predictive text on Android, like essentially it is the same principle, right? Can generate interesting text, can solve mathematical problems, can explain Deleuze to you, can write some coherent text, can check your text for grammatical mistakes. But yeah, that's it's good to see that, you know, and it's also you know, when I'm working with it like this, right? I was showing this with like Wallace Stevens. The reason I'm showing it is because, you know, sometimes it's like, yeah, sometimes it's just like, you know, it treats it as a part of text, you know, it's not it doesn't have any kind of discursive structure. And you can it's actually a good question for you. Do you know how to go from here to chat? how in this, like in the on the level of this playground, how do we go to chat? So imagine you start working with it and you start doing something like, okay, let's I'm solving mathematical. This is how prompts were looking 2 years ago. It feels like an eternity. You give it examples, then it gives you a right answer, but then it just gets confused and does something new. Okay, yeah. But people notice that, you know, you can like this is called instruction following, but people notice that you can go and do something like this. Let's pick a slightly smarter model and lower the temperature. Actually, this is cheating. So let's see. Right, so if you start giving it like a structure of the chat, it starts to follow it, but it doesn't have any kind of sense of self, right? So it's just as happy to complete the text for the user as it is for assist, right? So, you know, here it's not very smart, but here, yeah, you see, it starts inventing more and more examples, but it's still, you know, it makes you a chat, but it doesn't know whether it's assistant or a user, right? Here it completed question for assistant. So I can play ChatGPT with it. I can be ChatGPT, and I can be assistant, and it can be user. It doesn't know. It's just like purely kind of generated language. The reason why we like, and I was saying, you know, this is the basic interface to how all large language models work. You give them a little bit of text and it just completes this text one token by token, right? A token is something between like a word or a letter. Like most of the short usual words like yes, no, they're tokens, and everything else is like kind of on the level of like some kind of morpheme. Um, but this kind of differentiation that you see in the chat, differentiation between interlocutors, is imposed on it externally by giving it a little bit of structure. Structure that looks like this or something more involved. Sometimes they use some special symbols to differentiate it, right? So, and it was, as you saw now, like you start using it and it just goes and, you know, hallucinates, right? This is like, does something weird instead of giving good answers. And that is why people don't seem to like this interface. And when I was trying to find something like this for you, like some kind of playground online, you will get access to this page if you register at OpenAI, and you will probably have to add your credit card. And using these models, you will probably not spend more than $50 on this experiment. So don't worry too much. There is limits, like it's not, but you will see, like, to get access to it, you need to do it. You will very likely for most of your project, you will have to do it. And like, as I said, you know, it's not large expenses. Every request, it's at the level of hundreds fractions of a cent, probably. You can look up pricing. Now, but still, and if you look online, if you look for any kind of like playgrounds, API tries, like all of these systems from ChatGPT to po.com to like other ones, and even like on Hugging Space, most of them, they work with chat, because this is just unwieldy. And it's a bit of a shame, because this is the rawest LLM there is. So the way chat works is just by looking at this text, formatting in this way, like assistant user, like you can see it here. Yeah, so this thing is just like underneath it is just a text, just like this. right? Just as we saw like a little bit before. And yeah, I think like by this time, I think most apps can use this chat interface underneath, even if they don't present chat to the user, just because, to differentiate between model and the user, model and the input is very important, right? Otherwise like this thing stops making sense, because ChatGPT GPT is very happy to generate sentences for each other. Yeah, so yeah, but we think like for example, if you start doing some like HTML, I don't know if you're familiar with what it is, right? It will generate you like a little page. And then you can like stop it, and then it will very happily continue somehow. Oh, it doesn't. Sometimes it does. Yeah, you see, this is exactly the problem I was talking about. Like you want to do something for other people to see, and you rely on AI, and instead it doesn't do what you want it to do. But like, here's your script, right? So it treats it like it can stop treating it as it doesn't know what it is, right? It starts writing it as a web page, but suddenly he says, here's your script. So maybe it's a chat log, or maybe it's a blog post, or maybe it's something else. Like it's all like this, especially like with older models, or what is kind of pre-trained models, they sometimes call. They all work on the database of web pages, essentially, mostly. And web pages that can contain a lot of stuff, like excerpts of books and web pages and everything, but like other web pages, but it is what they work on, and it is what it imagines itself to be. And then afterwards, after we realized that it is like it's most useful not as this like wall of text into which you insert your instructions, they realized that chat is a better interface, and then they started specifically training these models additionally to work better in the chat space, right? But it is this chat in the chat format. But this chat format is like it's bolted on top of this model, right? Like inherently, it is what just simply completes text without any kind of sense of subject or interlocutor or anything. Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I encourage you to try it here, and I encourage you to try it here as well. And it's like one of like an annoying thing about this industry right now is like every month it changes. So there was like some things I really like to be doing with this old models, because there used to be a time where there was a model that OpenAI as well, that you give it beginning of the text like here, but you also give it ending of the text. So it generates you everything between. So we can generate like a really complicated story of which you know the ending, right? Which is like with ChatGPT, you have to ask it, okay, make a story and then make an ending, and then the whole time it's going to think about its ending, and it's going to be boring. But with this thing, it's a little bit different. But yeah, alas, like the moment you start liking something, they take it away from you, as they took away this kind of interface, and they give us chat. Okay, but this chat is yeah. So now, so in this regime, right, in this mode, like we already started to differentiate between system prompts and user prompts. Like one thing, like one of the first thing I built using this thing is a Telegram bot that gives you, like, corrects your sentences, like I was learning German, still do, and it would correct my mistakes and also explain my mistakes, right? Because Microsoft Word doesn't explain my mistakes, it just corrects it. And it's the way I was doing it. I wrote like a prompt, like, okay, a sec. And again, now we are used to say, okay, you are an assistant that does this, you talk to it. But when it was web page, we had to mostly pretend that we write a blog post. So we would say, okay, here are some examples of mistakes non-native speakers do. And then we say, okay, sentence, do is, okay, and like my creativity completely do is, and then correction. Do bist hungry is a correct form of sein. Now, and then sentence, and then, here would go the user sentence. So we give it kind of example, but it's not, we don't give it example as a human gives example to another human. We give it example for it to kind of complete it as a, blog post to kind of get used to this format. If it's like, if you understand kind of the difference here. And now we trained it to understand what you means, but if you're writing like a blog post, if you're writing a web page, the word you would mean something completely different, right? So if if you read on a like random web page something that says you, it means user reader, not me, like not the thing that continues to write it. I don't know if I don't know if you understand what I mean. Anyway, probably we're lucky that we don't have to do it, right? But in this case, so as I said, right? So I gave it some explanation. I gave it an example, right? So now we would call this a prompt. And this part of it, right, where, the sentence from our user goes, this would be called user prompt. And everything else would be typically called system prompt, right? This, because, one kind of thing to differentiate, right? So when we're making an app for other people, we call them users, or we call them sometimes end users, right? Because you as app maker, you're also like a user of OpenAI, for example, right? So it sometimes it gets a bit weird. So we call end user is like the final person who is using it, and then you are using it, and then like let's say we want to make a bot, like a Telegram bot using chat. Right? Again, you have a system prompt, and then here we can use the second person, like you are, and that's what they recommend. You are assistant that corrects and explains users' mistakes. And then here, as you can see, I can enter the message as both user and assistant, right? Why? Just like I was showing you in the other playground, it's because very often I want to give it a couple of examples, right? So, and this you see, like you also do give ChatGPT examples, right? When you write to ChatGPT something, you give it examples. That's typical. But here you give it examples of its own answers, right? It's not part of system prompt as much as like this part of like this dialogue structure. I mean, this is not extremely essential, but I think like, it's interesting. It's also like maybe would help you kind of make it clearer. Okay. Okay. So assistant, so user says, do this. Yeah, you see, it didn't need an example, but sometimes I need a particular format, right? So this is why here I can edit assistant's response as well. This is not something you can do in ChatGPT, I think. You can edit your own replicas, but not here. So here you say, right? Let's say we want it to just simply give shorter answers, and then we save it, and then we add another something else like air-based hungry. He's happy. Now you see, like we will need like a couple of more examples, or we will need to see here, say here something like you give short. Yeah, so this is my short. So as a person who is making something that other people gonna talk to, right, in this way, like it can be chatbot or it can be something else that still uses GPT API. You will have to see how to fit users' words, users' sentence, command into this kind of structure, right? It's not even always like a complete message. They call it message in the API. Sometimes, you will say something like, correct this. And then you will insert here the user square, right? So you make in a character bot, you will have to make a prompt, and this prompt is going to look like this little dialogue. And in this little dialogue, there's going to be a placeholder, like, like in a form, like this underline thing, where the user could basically write into their text, and then you get some kind of response. And just as you prepare this prompt, and the user doesn't see the whole thing, the user only sees what you give it. So in the same way, after you get response from assistant, you can also work with it further, right? Like, for example, you have an assistant that describes what the person sees like in their adventures in 18th century France. And then let's say we imagine user saying something like, I mean, yeah, maybe, but maybe you don't want the user to read all of this, right? Maybe your app is kind of designed to be a little bit more visceral, visual. So what you want to do here is not to feed your user back this text. You're gonna want to take this and send it to like an image generator, something like DALL-E, and then generate the image for the user that they can visualize it better, right? So your interaction with GPT is going to be generally structured as this chat, but this chat is not necessarily visible to the user, right? Just like, it's like everything in technology is like layers and layers and layers of this like invisible abstraction. So this chat is a layer of invisible abstraction upon completion. Yeah, I'm gonna let you ask questions about it in a second. And then on top of this chat, there is your app that uses this chat like kind of behind. It talks to GPT, but the way, like what it does with it, it's something completely different. It can be doing anything, and we will be able to see what. Okay, I hope it didn't go completely over your head. Let's talk about. Did you understand anything, Jenny?
Oh, yes, sorry. I don't know if there was somebody else who was already had their hand raised.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so yeah, I'm a little confused by so I've never used ChatGPT. I don't even know what it is, how it works. So I think you were saying that you assume that most people did. So maybe they understood better what you were doing. So this platform and what you were demonstrating, are we supposed to use this platform for our final project, or I'm confused about the relationship between what you showed?
Yeah, good question. Yes, sorry about. Okay, so this platform is OpenAI's platform, and OpenAI is one of kind of main vendors of LLM right now on the market. Right? As I told you before, my bet is all of them are going to be same. We're going to be like, I would suggest you use this. You can use something else if you figure out yourself. But I would suggest use this. It's one of the most popular and powerful, and it's quite cheap. It is the same company that does ChatGPT. And these things that I'm showing you is basically a different interface to GPT. It's the same model, and it is what programmers, and I would not be surprised if like OpenAI programmers also used this kind of thing to develop ChatGPT and all of their other little apps. Will you have to be using it? if you remember my slide, making an actual interactive app is not strictly necessary, right? So you will have to develop prompt, and to develop prompt, it's going to be enough for you to just use ChatGPT to assemble and test the prompt, right? And yeah, I mean, we will get back, but like kind of this is what is really kind of happening, and it's probably preferable for you to use this just because it's kind of more raw, more immediate access to it. And I'm demonstrating it to you, especially these things that you will probably never gonna use, just to show you how this kind of work underneath and what's on top of it. Like even now, like there's like a lot of progress been done, not a lot of time. LLMs are still kind of built on top of this pure completion. And I think they're going to be for foreseeable future. So that's why I'm showing it.
Okay, and then you mentioned
Jenny?
that, well, you mentioned that we have to upload our credit card and we have to.
Oh, okay. So yeah, as I said, you know, this like to use most of AI tools, they're all kind of paid, and they paid at the level of fractions of cents. Right, so to use it, it's like OpenAI wants your credit card, right? It's like I think expenses overall are probably going to be less than $1, like for the whole thing, for the whole course. I'm not sure, but like, so this is kind of the amounts here. But yeah, if there is like absolute like maybe you live in a country that is banned from using American financial system, like me, you can text me, we'll figure something out. But yeah, I would say you don't have to use it. Like you can make essential parts of final project purely with ChatGPT or pod.com, but it's a thing to try. Suzanne or Peggy was first. Sorry.
So I went to try to get onto this playground, and I got onto one that's a ChatGPT 3.5 or 4.0 playground. I don't think I had to put my credit card in, but I already had a free account. And yeah, there they drop. I didn't see the drop down. I don't have quite the same interface. I do have documentation though, which might help people.
Can you maybe send the link to the chat? Maybe it's something different.
Okay, I can do that. I don't think so, but okay.
Okay. So yeah, what's like this, what I'm showing you is like the rawest, most kind of real access. Not maybe not, but something like this, right? There are other ways to access all of it. Do we have time for exercise? Little exercise and not. Okay, Suzanne, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I was interested in kind of the formulation of the project idea, and what you just typed on screen about envisioning the world of an 18th century observer seems on the one hand really simple, but also quite like interesting, and you'd have to think through the steps and in order to make that happen. Are the kind of project ideas that you're looking for from us, ideally, would they be articulated in that kind of very simple form? You should be able to sort of compress it down to a sentence. Is that the sign of a kind of manageable project? Like it's you're setting up an interesting task, and I don't know, it's just, how do we get to the core idea of a project? That's what I think some of us are wondering, what the nature of that idea is. And when you wrote that on screen, I just wondered if that was the beginnings of a project as you described, but if we could find something equivalent for ourselves, that would be good.
I think, this is one type of a project, like this kind of historical simulation.
Yeah.
And I sent like a link to like kind of this guy who is making it. He's,
yeah.
I mean, he's interesting. He also like wrote a couple of books. Yeah, and not about this. But you can check out his blog. He's one of prolific writers about this kind of historical simulations. In the same way, you can make like some kind of utopian simulation, right?
Yes.
Or something like this. It's only one possible thing, right? You can do
Yes.
something completely different. You can make, search of New Center archive, or like something else, right? So I would say, think about the corpus that you want to work with. Right?
Right.
It's really best if it's like your favorite corpus. If it's not, it doesn't even have to exist. You can write it, but
Yeah.
it has to be something you care about. And then from this corpus, think about like what would be an interesting way for people to interact with it that is not just reading. Right?
Sure. I understand that there's many different types of projects, but I imagine that a good project idea is one that is as simply put as that. I mean, if you have to describe your project in a paragraph, then like it's too complicated. I don't know. I mean, it just seemed like a very simple, manageable task.
Yeah, but it's also a bit of an art to describe things in one sentence. Like, I mean, I wouldn't impose like such things on yourself.
Okay.
So, like if you by the 5th session of the seminar, send me something like, okay, an email which is very vague, but it has a clear idea of a corpus, but it's very clear that you don't really know what to do with it. It's completely fine. I respect it, right? It's not, don't be scared of me. We will, try to find something interesting to do. I think a lot of our time is going to be brainstorming and thinking what you can do with a data set, or not data set, database or corpus. It's a lot of the time we're going to spend on this brainstorming, and I will try to send you some examples as well.
Okay, examples would be great.
Yeah. So, Glenda?
So just, I guess, to clarify, one, I think depending on which country you are in, that extends which level of GPT you can use. So I can only go up to 3.5 turbo. I can't get to GPT-4, but the chances of that changing are very high in the terms of the course.
Absolutely.
I used to work with a startup where we were using generative AI before ChatGPT was released. And ChatGPT was released and everything that we thought we knew changed, but like in 3 to 6 months. So it happens really quickly with OpenAI because they're the primary creators of generative and chat GPT based things. So like a lot of the AI that we're seeing, so I don't know, Meta has got one, Google has got one. All of this sudden we're being like given these AI plus options. And it's just kind of understanding that the technology at its basic comes from OpenAI and it can be used in different ways. And I guess this is what you've been trying to explain to us, this system used prompts kind of.
I mean, OpenAI is one kind of creator. Obviously, like Google Gemini is not the same thing underneath, but it's like cars, right? I don't know. I don't know much about cars, but like this is fancy car, this is less fancy car. It's all of them are gonna get you from A to B, right? I would say, the worse model you use, like the lower the numbers, first of all, it's going to be cheaper. And secondly, if your thing works with the worst one, it will work with a great one, right? If your thing only works with a great one, maybe it's not very well done. That's what I say. A lot of people really like to discuss kind of finer details of these models. I think it's a waste of time, and it's, as you correctly said, it's going to change in a month. In a month, they're going to break your favorite model and create another one. It's just like exhausting. So yeah, whatever you see here, GPT 3.5, like absolutely same things that I was doing, you can do. I think there is a history here. Leisure restore, like you can do absolutely the same thing with 3.5. Peggy, you still holding the hand? Is it you want to say something?
That's a mistake. I've been playing in the playground, so.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you want to do like kind of more discussion, or do you want to do like a very small exercise, which is probably going to end up being homework? I mean, nobody wants to say anything. We're gonna do. Okay, so I have to do research that kind of like research of free tools for you guys that kind of gets outdated every day because they new tools comes out and other free tools kind of get removed. But hopefully this thing that we're going to be doing is still enough. So I'm going to show you this app. It's called this is paw.com. And I believe, I might be completely wrong about this, but I believe that it is free to a certain limit. And one thing about this is that you can use a lot of models from here, right? All of these things that I told you, like that they don't matter. You can try all of them. You will see that all of them are kind of the same. You know, some people say, okay, like, I mean, apart from like these ones that generate images and stuff, but you know, you can try like Claude, you can try something else. You know, it's on Pause, they all kind of presented in the same interface. And the reason, and it's, I think it's uglier than ChatGPT, but you know, it's free, you can use. The reason I want to show it to you is because it allows you to create bots. Now you might have heard of GPTs, right? And ChatGPT, there is also like different bots that you can create with little GPTs. But unfortunately, I believe that GPTs are only available for paid subscribers. Probably not all of you are paid subscribers, but on Paw, I think you can do it, right? So what we're going to be doing is creating a bot. And to create a bot, yeah, so you create like a bot by basically entering a system prompt, right? This is here, system prompt, user prompt, assistant response. So here in this bot on paw.com, you are limited to the system prompt, right? This is what we're going to be doing today. Your final app doesn't need to be a paw.com bot, and I would even say it's probably not a good thing if it is, but it's a very simple way to try and also to share your system prompt, right? So let's try making okay. So when you create a bot here, right? You give it a name, you give it a prompt, and you click create bot, and then you can interact with it, but it's not very, maybe not very nice. So in absolutely same way, you can just try absolutely same prompt here, try it, and then copy it, right? So let's say you want to make a bot that writes in the style of Van Gogh. Right, about right, so it's again, this is like a bit of, I mean, at some point you get a bit tired of all this generated text, but it is what it is. So and then like you change this prompt a few times. Actually, you cannot edit it, right? So you can do, maybe let's do ChatGPT. I mean, it's all the same. Like as I said, you know, all of it is the same thing. But like the plus good thing here is that you can edit it, right? And you can edit it, and you can edit it until you kind of more satisfied with what you want. Now, and then since we're making something for other people today and always, right? And you know, if you learn to make this thing for other people, it's going to not be hard for you to make something for yourself. Then you will copy this as a part that is, you know, the system prompt of it, and you will create a bot or like edit this one. And then you will be able to share it. Right, you will create it, you will be given a link. Right, so, and my grand idea for you was that you will split into groups. I even have it on slide. And you will make a bot, and you will share it with your colleagues in the group, and it will be a bot that impersonates some person that you can expect people to know. But kind of the catch is you don't mention the person himself, right? So instead of, as I did, saying, okay, write something in the style of Van Gogh's letter, you will try to basically describe like a typical Van Gogh letter, right? And maybe we change it a little bit so it's not obvious, so we don't start with Theo, but what would you say kind of most prominent features of Van Gogh's letter? Okay, we have 10 minutes, not interactive, so I would say it's something like about your love for nature. Maybe let's do Zizek. I think like Zizek is like the most obvious, right? So given a prompt, try to tie it to some kind of ludicrous political conclusion. Elaborate on it. And then say, what if the opposite is true? Elaborate on that. And use obscure Lacanian concept. Then say, we must dialectically combine this. Use Hegel and quote from an opera to explain what it is. Okay. Yeah, okay. This is, I never mentioned Zizek. I'm pretty sure even ChatGPT would recognize, you can ask, after you made this kind of description, you can ask it, do you know style? No. No. But I mean, I think like if it was ChatGPT-4, it would guess that it's Zizek, right? So the goal of this exercise is to see the difference between kind of using ChatGPT's latent knowledge versus really guiding its response. And I think like in some cases, if you make a parody or if you want to create some kind of effect, like, if you would do like, I don't know, Kafka, like one good thing here is to not to try to come up with like absolute generalization of every Kafka's work, but to find a structure that would be kind of recognizably Kafkaesque, even if he maybe uses it once or never. Right, so you will like what I want you to do is to write like a description of somebody else's discourse, without mentioning them and without giving like too much recognizable details, for you to think on the level of, first of all, the kind of typical structure of the way they talk. Secondly, kind of like the word choice they use, like maybe like where the arguments come from. And learning how to do this, I mean, this is not something we're gonna come back to, right? This is probably like as much text generation as we're gonna cover in this course. But this is important to be in control of its style. If you just ask ChatGPT to answer in the style of Lacan, it will not answer in the actual style of Lacan. It will Lacan, I'm sorry, Lacan. It will answer in the style of like its own idea of what it is, and it would not be much very likely, right? I think last time I tried, it was always talking to me about imaginary, real, and symbolic. Okay, fine, but that's not how I would describe kind of Lacanian style, not content but style. So it is very typical for people who make a prompt to try to avoid this work of making like very explicit what they want from the style because they think that this thing knows better. Not always. Like sometimes, yeah, I think I can do like decent Van Gogh, but for many others, not, right? If you give it some kind of obscure, not obscure, but like philosopher or writer that you like, but is not very famous, ChatGPT will probably do a very bad job. And just because it doesn't know much about it, but you do. Yeah. And you can also maybe use some quotes to illustrate it, but I would say try not to use like kind of pre-made things like quotes and last names, but try to really describe the person's style. So kind of structure of their utterance, their word choice, some other stylistic thing, and then make a bot out of it, right? So you can take this prompt, go to PO, right? PO, I think, is free. There is this button, create a bot, create bot. Make this prompt, like, what is it? Yeah. Don't, like, in the name, it should not be obviously telling what it is. And then you say, put here, like, you can ignore everything else. Here you pick that it's publicly accessible because, you know, we are public. Now you have a bot. Talk about yeah, we get, like, actually, I mean, I can totally believe Zizek would say something. Why not? And he writes, I think, as quickly as ChatGPT does later. So and then you will take this bot, you will share it, you will go on Discord and you will share it with everyone else, and you will let everyone else guess. You know, with like with party games when people guess this kind of thing. So this is your homework. Does it make sense? So give me some validation. Does it make sense at all?
It does, but one question: we need to do both collectively, like in groups, yes?
No, each of you. There's not going to be groups
Only
because...
on.
And then
Yeah.
you put your own discourse, like just send a link, and I think in discourse you can have this like replies, and then in replies people are gonna hopefully respond. Now I think kind of cool, like it's to make something with computer, something creative. One of the techniques we use is this kind of maybe adversarial situation when you know, there is like kind of two limiting factors, right? So here one limiting factor is it's good if AI doesn't know who he pretends to be, but it's good when other people understand it, right? I think, you know, in whose style you're speaking? No. Okay, good. But when I was testing this homework, it was very, like, it was immediately clear to him that he talks in Zizek style. So, but you know, if you make something that AI doesn't understand what he's doing, but he still does a good job of impersonating, it's good. It means that you are really well in control of it. Yeah. Also, when you are going to test other people's bots and try to figure out what it is, like who it is that they impersonate, you can try to do it kind of faithfully by giving it some topics and responses, but you can also try to hack it. You can also try to kind of demand that it reveals the initial prompts, the initial kind of secrets that you don't see, because here in this bot, you don't actually see what I've written, like this kind of structure thing, and this kind of like prompt hacking is an important kind of technique to understand. I don't know if it makes sense. Yes. Okay. Any parting words? I'm gonna send it. I'm gonna send a description of what you have to do in the email. So. Okay.
Thank you so much for this inspiring session.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you as well. Yeah, and keep thinking about your like the corpora you want to work with, the bots you would like to make, wild ideas, boring ideas, research ideas, art ideas. All of it is good. We will find something for us to...
Thank you. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.